Okay. So we learned yesterday all about single people wearing a talit, not wearing a talit. Single people covering their head with the talit, not covering their head with the talit. All of that we did last night, Baruch Hashem. Page 146. Let's read Maran at the top. Even though we're up to 147 in the middle of the page, let's do 146 at the top. Maran writes this, and I don't see that Rabbi David Yosef even wrote anything about it. It could be he's going to talk about it a little bit later. But let's know this halakha from Maran. Talitot ktanim, the small talitot. What are the small talitot?
The ones you wear underneath your clothes.
Underneath your shirt.
Right, the ones you wear underneath your shirt. Shalanu, that we wear. Sha'anu nohagim livosh, that we are accustomed to wearing. He keeps saying this. Why? Remember yesterday? Why are we the ones who are wearing them? What's the origin of talit katan?
It's when they were persecuted and they couldn't wear it.
Right, we were persecuted and we were not able to wear the big talitot in public, so we wore the small ones, and we still continue to wear those small talitot. Afal pi she'en bahem ituf, even though they're not big enough to wrap around your body like the talit. Yotzim bahem yidei chovat tzitzit, you fulfill with them the mitzvah of tzitzit. And this is why Sfaradim are so into tzitzit, even though our custom was not to wear them, because Maran says you fulfill a mitzvah. Some Ashkenazi poskim say that the tzitzit is not big enough to get any mitzvah for wearing. And that was used as an argument for why even single Ashkenazim should wear a big talit. That's the Mishnah Berurah's argument, but let's not get carried away. And then you're going to read something now that I don't think any of you do, because the custom is not to do what Maran says.
Even though we follow Maran?
Even though we follow Maran, regardless of what he says, we follow. This is one of those times we don't follow. V'tov la'aniach oto al rosho. It's good to put the talit on your head. Rochbo lekomato. The wide way. Ulitatef bon, to wrap your head with it. Or your body, your head and your body. V'yamod kach, and you should stand that way, me'utaf, wrapped up in your small talit, lefachot kidei hiluch arba amot. At least as long as it takes you to walk 4 amot. 4 amot are 18 inches. How big are these tiles? The square ones?
2 by 2.
2 by 2 inches.
2 feet?
2 feet by 2 feet.
Okay, so how many of these would I need to get the 4 amot?
4 of them. Or 2.
No, 18 inches is an amah.
Yeah, so 7 to 6 feet, so
3 of them. So how long does it take you to walk 3 of them?
Well, less than a second.
It's not even a walk, right? It's a few seconds? A second? So that's how long you would need to stay covered. Just momentarily. But not this. You have to cover yourself, right? For a little bit. And that's also what you should do in the morning. Cover yourself for as long as it would take you to walk 3 of those. It's in Jewish law considered the basic amount of time to do something.
Why did you do it?
To wrap, that was the other week we spoke about. No, it's the way that the clothing, it used to be like a scarf, like Muslims would wear wrapped around their face and their shoulders and their neck. So we're kind of still doing that custom of wrapping ourselves in it. Then you should pull it over your head and you should wear the tzitzit normally. And if someone can maybe do me the favor, I have on my... Actually, I might be able to reach it.
Oh, you got it.
That one wasn't on the table. Maran, Chet Gimel. Let's see what the Kaf HaChaim says. Why Sfaradim? Why I don't see this happening by Sfaradim? Okay. Have you ever seen anybody do this? With a small tzitzit? No, right? You just put it
I
on.
never saw the big tzitzit like here.
That's the only one I've seen, but the big one, yeah.
I saved that money for many years to buy this set of books, and it's a terrible print inside, like a horrendous. The grandson of the author never let any Jew have the rights to reprint it, like with a laser print. I bought it, I made a shachian on it, I brought it home, and that month, the first time in maybe 60 years, They printed a brand new laser edition. I said, okay, for the next... I'm looking at words here. What is that, a aleph? Is it a shin? What words are these? It doesn't say. I'm sure we're going to read about it a little bit later. My assumption is the reason we don't do it is the same reason Sfaradim don't make a blessing on the small tzitzit. We only make a blessing on the big talit. Because we wear the small tzitzit, having in mind that we'll make the blessing on it when we put on our big talit in the Bet Knesset. And so it could be the same thing. We don't wrap ourselves in it because we'll do the wrapping with the big talit when we come to the Bet Knesset.
But if you only wear a small,
Then you're in trouble. But the system of Jewish halakha, at least not until the Ramah steps in, is not built for someone who doesn't wear the... Like, there are some people who didn't wear the small one. But someone to not wear the big one is a radical concept.
well, I meant somebody who is not obligated by Jewish law to wear a big talit person.
Like who?
A small kid.
Meaning under the age of education? You were there for last night's
Yeah,
class.
I was there.
So-
I mean, there's different customs.
Right, so that's already custom. So what we're saying is in basic Jewish law, from the moment a kid is wearing small tzitzit, he already should be wearing a big talit, presumably.
Yeah, but that's not really what everybody's
Today. Once upon a time it was. So today, right, today would be an interesting question. Right, today though would be a good question. Somebody who only wears a small tzitzit, whether he wraps himself up in it.
Yeah. I've never seen it, but
It's a good question. For that, we keep a Mishnah Berurah around.
So for a young person, how would you even fulfill a mitzvah?
yeah, but the Ashkenazim have a custom of making single people not wear a big talit until they're married.
Oh, Hashem. Sometimes when you're in the Beit HaMikdash for so many years, you know that what you're going to say is going to be backed up by a source. Because you get yourself in the mode of thinking. For example, when I was with Harav Peretz in Jerusalem, it was normal that when someone would ask me a question that I didn't ever ask Harav Peretz, that I could already almost guess the answer he was going to give. Today, I'm so far removed from the Beit HaMikdash and Harav Peretz, which to you might sound funny because I quote him a lot, but I'm not immersed in that tank of Harav Peretz, that I do find myself sometimes thinking because I'm more influenced today by other things than Harav Peretz. And the Mishnah Berurah says what I said about the wrapping. Those who don't make a blessing in the small tzitzit also wouldn't wrap themselves in the small tzitzit. But those who would make a blessing in the small tzitzit, it seems like they would wrap themselves in the small tzitzit. He's something interesting. He says, what is the definition of a small tzitzit in which you fulfill your obligation of tzitzit with? I'll read it to you and you'll be blown away because maybe you do, but I don't walk around with such tzitzit. I'll read it. V'hu sheyesh behem shi'ur. They have to be big enough, sha'katan ben 9 shanim, that a 9-year-old child, yitkaseh bo rusho v'rubo, he'll be able to cover his head and the majority of his body with them. It should cover the majority of the body of a 9-year-old child.
And his head, too.
And his head. V'gadol ben yud gimel shanim, and a 13-year-old child, al kol panim lo yitbayesh latzet bo be'akrai barchov, would not be embarrassed that if he had no other clothing and he just wore his small tzitzit, like let's say coming from the swimming pool, so not something he would wear to school, right? He's saying occasionally. He would not feel uncomfortable wearing his tzitzit if he had no other clothes on.
No other clothes?
Yes.
They have to be long enough.
So it should be pretty long, or you have to be very tall.
Most telecatons are mini skirt.
Right, they maybe for El Hanan they'll cover some of him, right? But not for... The truth is that there is a Chazon Ish tzitzit, which goes basically from your knees on one side of your body to your knees behind you. It's a crazy thing to wear, tzitzit. So we would see him according to the Mishnah Berurah that wearing small tzitzit, even for Ashkenazim, you would not fulfill your biblical obligation of wearing tzitzit. And that's perhaps why he's so in wonderment, or not in a good way, at the people who don't wear a big talit. I mean, the talit katan that you wear, you don't get a mitzvah biblically from. Okay. And the other reason why a person wouldn't have to wrap himself in a small tzitzit, according to halakha, do you have to wrap yourself in the tzitzit? No. It's only like a hinted in the Torah, hinted in the sources that you wrap yourself in the talit, and therefore, basic halakha, you don't have to wrap yourself even in your big talit. So how much more so in your small talit? It wouldn't be the end of the world if you don't wrap yourself in it. Let's go to page 149. Oh, look at this. Wonderful.
Rabbi, you said that according to Maran, you do fulfill the mitzvah of talit?
Small tzitzit, if the Mishnah Berurah is correct, his small tzitzit is much bigger than Maran's than our small tzitzit. Have you ever seen what's called beged ivri? Hebrew clothing. Have you ever seen this before? There's a group in Jerusalem that are trying to go back to like biblical clothing. They look like it when they walk in the street. They look like they're wearing biblical clothing. But essentially, imagine your tzitzit, a tunic. You know what a tunic is? But it goes like from your ankles to your ankles. That whole piece of clothing has four corners and they have tzitzit on it. So maybe that's what they refer to as the small tzitzit, but I find it hard to see it that way. Though you should know, remember Maran says you have to wear your small tzitzit on top of your clothes. So it could be his small tzitzit is really a big article of clothing, but it just doesn't look like a talit, or it's not. We'd have to really understand what does Maran mean when he says small tzitzit. And perhaps that's why he says the small tzitzit that we wear, not the small tzitzit that you're wearing today, but the small tzitzit that we wore is Maran the same. Could be. The Mishnah Berurah is a very helpful book to have. And unfortunately, in the yeshiva world, it's gone under a lot of criticism. It's very, very briefly, it doesn't bring all the opinions. It's pretty decisive. Do this, don't do that. There's another book that was written about the same time called the Aruch Siman, a little bit earlier, not exactly the same time. And in the yeshiva world, it's like a lamdish book. You learn a lot. There's a lot of arguments and debates. And if you really want to be a Torah scholar, you will learn Aruch Siman. So Rav Aaron, by Rav Peretz, we only study Mishnah Berurah. This is our book, even though he's Ashkenazi, he's Polish. But we Rav Aaron Cutler, when he used to come to the Jewish educational seminars in the East Coast, he was the Rosh Hashiva of Lakewood. They would invite him to the Torah U'Mesorah conventions, or to all these big Jewish establishment conventions. He would always come with a book, a Mishnah Berurah. That's what he would always have on his table. So somebody once asked him, said, Rabbi Cutler, why do you come with Mishnah Berurah, like a Rosh Hashiva like you? You should be learning the Aruch Shulchan. He says, I bring it to the table because I want the merits of the Chavetz Chaim to protect me at these meetings. That's how holy of a person he was. He said, but don't you know the Chavetz Chaim prayed that he didn't want to be the posek of his generation. He didn't want to be the legal decisor of his generation. Rabbi Khan said, I know, that's true. And his wish was fulfilled because people like you study only Aruch HaShulchan. He said, but he forgot to pray that he shouldn't be the holiest person in his generation. And he was the holiest person in his generation. And so because of that, I still insist on bringing his books with me to whatever meetings I go. The Mishnah Berurah, someone who really studied Mishnah Berurah, you'll walk away a changed person, a different person. It's like his holiness shines through the pages. Different than any other book you study. Especially in Halakha. So, Rabbi David Yosef writes, under the two lines on 149. Din talit katan, the halakha of the laws of a small tzitzit, v'shiuron, how big it has to be, v'mevarchim alevishato, and if you make a blessing when you put it on, ushar patei dinim b'inyan shiur beged talit, and all the other halachot regarding the actual small talit, yivuaru b'siyata d'shamaya lehalan, b'siman Chet Zayin will be in chapter 16, my friends were in chapter 8, uveshut otzot Yosef shebesov hasefer, and at the end of the book. So, anything you want to know about small tzitzit, give us like 9 years, we'll get there. I'm kidding. We'll get there. B'ezrat Hashem. We're moving right along. It's not so far from us. Like 200 pages.
To about middle of about year and a half.
Baruch Hashem. We're still going to be here in a year and a half. I want to know that someone pointed out to me. He's sitting here in the room, but someone pointed out to me that our main contingency in this Beit Knesset, who's holding up this Beit Knesset, are the people who learn here in Kollel. And it's because you learn Torah and we learn Torah together, you have a connection with each other and with ourselves and with the learning that nobody else gets. If you just come on Shabbat morning to pray, to learn, to read the Torah, to go, you're not going to walk away with that same connection to this place as as one of you will. And you should be proud of yourself. You're doing something that's never been done before here. Right? Not just here in this room, here in San Diego. Yud Gimel. Let's first do Maran on the top. I like Maran. He's good. Can't read the commentary without reading the actual book, right? Daled, Maran says, Machzir shtei tzitziot lefanav. You make sure that 2 tzitziot stay in the front. Ushtayim lachorav, and 2 tzitziot are in the back. K'dei sheyeh mesubav b'mitzvot. In order so that you will be surrounded with mitzvot. I mentioned to you once, the Vilna Gaon understands this halakha to mean that if all your tzitziot are in the front, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit. Which is why you'll find the Vilna Gaon, as well as many Sephardic rabbis, are careful that in Shema they only gather the 2 front tzitziot. Whereas the Ben Ish Chai and many Kabbalistic Ashkenazi rabbis gather all 4 of the tzitziot and put them in the front, because gathering of the 4 corners, and obviously you're still wearing a talit, there's still talit behind you. Both of the opinions are correct. I'm not convinced that what Maran is saying is that if you have all 4 in the front, you're not getting the mitzvah of tzitzit. But there is this idea to have 2 in front, 2 in the back, so you'll be surrounded on all 4 corners of you with mitzvot. Let's look what Rabbi David says under the 2 lines. It's already explained above. Shachar gemar ha'ituf, that after you wrap yourself in the talit, machzir shtei tzitziot lefanav, you leave 2 tzitziot in the front, ushtayim nachorav, and 2 behind you, k'dei sheyeh mesubav mitzvot, in order that you will be surrounded with mitzvot. Vayen lahalan b'siman chavdaled, look later on in chapter 24. That's the last chapter in this book. Sham nitbaer im tzarich la'avir kol 4 tzitziot lefanav b'sha'ah shekoreh KSH shachrit. There we will explain if you need to put all the 4 tzitziot in front of you or behind you during Shema. Great.
Gotta wait a while.
Like I told you, lots of tzitzit, not all of them are relevant for today, so we might be going through some chapters faster than others. V'yesh hanahagu la'asot atara b'tzad echad shel talit. Some have the custom to put on a crown or some kind of nice ornament on one side of the talit, k'dei shetiyeh l'siman, so that it could be for a sign for you. She'otan tzitziot shezachu liyot milifnim, that those same 2 tzitzit that merited to be in front, you tamid milifnim, should always be in front. Mipnei shema'alin b'kodesh ve'en moridin. Because there's an idea that when something goes up in holiness, you don't take it down in holiness. This question would be relevant. Can I sew 2 cloths that were previously tzitziot? Can I sew them into one big talit? Or can I take a talit and cut it in half and make 2 tzitziot out of it? So both of those questions would require the untying of the strings and putting them back on, so they would be kosher. But the idea is, am I taking the talit up in holiness or down in holiness? And that would be the direction you could go. Meaning, can you take a tefillin bag and turn it into a parochet? It's made out of the same material. Or can I take a parochet that's old and cut it up and make a tefillin bag out of it? I don't want to throw it in the garbage. But sometimes using it for a purpose that is less than what it was used for before is also not respectful to the talit. We're going to have an interesting question when we build our new Aron Kodesh, God willing. What do we do with this cabinet? Can we put it back on Craigslist and sell it to somebody as a TV cabinet? Or has it already reached a level of holiness of an Aron Kodesh where we might have to dismantle it and put the pieces somewhere or bury them or something? We're going to have to look into those questions when they come up. But you should know that these things are very yitzchach. Has your green bin come yet since Sukkot? No, right? You have 1 more week. Do you know you're not allowed to throw your yitzchach in the garbage?
Oops.
You did not? No, I'm not saying avera. No one tell me what you did. Because yitzchach is a mitzvah. It was used for a mitzvah. So what I'm happy is that they introduced this green bin. Because this green bin is not garbage. It's not with dirty food and diapers. It's with just other greens that are going to be shredded somewhere and it'll be recycled. So it could be that's a better way to dispose of the greens than something else. Like when Yosef was sold into slavery. We say he was lucky that he was sold. Hashem planned it out. That he was sold into which hands of which people? Do you remember this Rashi? What kind of merchants? What were they selling?
I remember they were selling like perfumes and spices.
They were selling perfumes and spices. Meaning he wasn't sent down with a caravan that was selling fertilizer to Egypt. Hashem wanted the tzaddik that at least his journey, it was into slavery, but he was going to a bad place. But at least the journey should be better and then the journey of traveling with the fertilizer guys. So that's the same idea. Schach is going to be thrown away anyways, but the way it's done could be a cleaner, nicer way.
Okay. When I got years ago, I got to go on a vacation in Turkey. And now probably not very safe to do that. And a lot of places you go and they would sell.
You could. You just have to use the name Barry, not Baruch.
Yeah. They would sell
or Barak.
dove patties.
Dove?
Yeah, patties made from doves.
It's kosher, technically, if they slaughtered it, right?
No, not the dove itself, but what the dove leaves in the
Oh,
nest.
no, Hashem Yishmo.
No, then you'd use it for your gardening and stuff.
Oh, for now it's for
Fertilizer.
eating.
For fertilizer.
No, not for eating. Fertilizer
Yeah, I'm
patties.
thinking in Turkey they're crazy people.
No.
Yeah.
Fertilizer
Patty.
patties. They're like little cakes.
You've been excused from sponsoring the Kiddush business.
Just took away Dan's appetite.
If you see a lot of people selling them, street vendors.
But we find that someone once told me, see, when you see how much Halakha says how you have to deal with a piece of palm tree branch that was on the roof of your sukkah, you realize how much more so you have to treat another human being. Like that's how much Torah says you can't throw it away in the garbage. So why can you disregard a person with your hand? This hand movement that people do to people, right? I mean, what is it? I was once walking with our parents, and I'll never forget. It was an Israeli guy was speaking to our parents, and I'm the guy who holds Rapert's bag, and Rapert doesn't like when the bag is out of his sight. He once told me these papers that are inside the bag, $100,000 wouldn't replace the papers inside. So I was walking too close, I guess, to their conversation. The guy turns around and says, "Tfos meter," which literally means take a meter, like go back a meter away from me, like get out of my face. I'm trying to talk to the rabbi. And I was so used to hanging around our parents, we would never say that. Something like, "Oh, can you please give me some privacy?" or hint, but to say it in a way like, "Get out of here," like move away. I need my. It's just a very unrefined way to speak, and just like you wouldn't speak that way to a leaf that was on top of your sukkah, we would learn from there how much more so towards other people. The Kohen Gadol, we're going to come, the book of Vayikra eventually. The Kohen Gadol wasn't allowed to use stairs. He only could use a ramp. Why not?
So you shouldn't be exposed.
So he didn't wear, he wore pants, but it shouldn't be exposed in a way that's not modest by stepping up onto a stair. It's an extreme level of tzniut.
I didn't dress like the Scots.
But our rabbis would say that imagine how much tzniut you had to have in front of a altar, a stairs, and it's not even a living thing. Imagine how much more modest you should be when you greet somebody or you come to the door or something to that effect. So these people who put a crown have this idea, they always want the top of the talit. Imagine if your talit didn't have a crown. How would you know which side is the top, the bottom? Would you know?
You wouldn't. Yeah.
You wouldn't know. That's where the custom of putting a crown comes from. They bring a proof from what it says in the Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, al kirshei Mishkan, on the beams of the Mishkan. The one that was always, the beams of the altar, of the Mishkan, that were always in the north, they always go back into the north. And some say, that you should not make the crown from gold or silver. Because then because then it will look like it's meant to be a crown for your head and not actually a marker for the talit. Meaning, don't make it too fancy. People are going to think that it's meant to make your head look good. Instead, you're only putting a little siman, a sign, to show people that this is the top and this is the bottom. Have you ever seen a Chabad talit before? Anything unique about a Chabad talit?
Huge.
3-foot plaque.
Very good. Dan, he wears one. Knows what I'm talking about. It doesn't have a crown like we have in our talit. It doesn't have. Forgive me if I pull this out. It doesn't have this piece on the outside. Rather, it has like another talit from the same fabric as a talit, almost plastered on the inside. Okay, it would cover basically your head and your shoulders. It's 3 feet. It's a good. The reason that they do that is because they don't want to have a crown, so it doesn't look like headgear, but they want to be able to tell which side is the top and which side is the bottom. That's the reason for that custom.
I didn't know that about it.
Yeah, it seems like some of the Mekubalim like that custom more. Okay, to each their own. Mikol makom. In any case, linyan halacha l'maaseh. Rabbi Yitzchak Abadi in the Or Yitzchak brings another reason. Says the reason you shouldn't put gold and silver, it will make the person sitting next to you feel jealous, and so you shouldn't do it. I have to give a disclaimer. My silver crown that I have on my Yom Kippur Talit, I didn't put it there. My Chavruta, the chief rabbi of Macedonia, got it for me as a gift. I bought a new Talit. Oh, I have a gift for you. He went and bought me silver plated, guys. Don't have to worry. It's not real silver. Some people have real silver. And he said, please put on, what are you going to say? Don't. He gave you a gift of something. I put on the Talit. But thank God I only have to wear it like 3 times a year. The rest of my Talit don't have it on there. The idea is it's a good idea to have a nice crown, but nothing that's going to make someone else be jealous of you.
In that case, the rule that you shouldn't wear a better suit than somebody and daven next to him.
When I was in yeshiva, Rabbi Tenler, Alav Shalom, our Rosh Yeshiva was very strict about this. If you would want to buy like a fancy, I'm just going to make sure I'm not offending anybody. No alligators, horses, nothing jumping around. Okay, if you want to wear a fancier article of clothing, you come from a house where they have a lot of money. They want to buy you a nice white button-down shirt. You'd say it cannot have any external markings that it's a brand name. If it would have, I don't know what the brands are. So whatever animal or whatever would have, right? He would not let you wear it in yeshiva.
How about a monogram, like the initials on? Like some people put the initials
Nothing that differentiates. You can wear a white shirt and black pants, and for all he cares, your parents, if they want to spend $1,000 on your suit, they can spend $1,000 on the suit. But it cannot distinguish itself from the way everyone else dresses, because you don't come to the yeshiva to make other people feel jealous. So there are kids who come from homes where they don't have, and you should know it's not a halakha. Obviously, you can drive a fancy car and you can live in a mansion. Halakha doesn't say you cannot do these things. But it's a wise thing. If society would understand, sure, I have a lot of money, so I want to buy a car. So buy a nice car and make it look really good inside. But outside, it should look like other people's cars. You should never make other people jealous of you. One of the 10 Commandments is, lo tachmod. Do not be jealous of what other people have. Do not covet. It says another person's house, another person's wife. It's your job also to make sure that you don't put other people in a situation where they are coveting, where they are jealous of you. As much as we can, to try to do that.
Well, is that the reason for the uniformity of yeshiva students? White shirts and black pants?
Most likely, aside from just it's nice to have a uniform, the idea is it's very hard to show off in that kind of environment.
Right.
My suit is blacker than yours. Like, what are you going to say? Really, someone said in yeshiva you can show your expression, your self-expression in 2 ways. Your tie and your socks. Like, that's the 2 things you can wear whatever color you want.
And definitely, they're having a field day now with those colored socks.
He knows. I was just in Baltimore. I noticed the same thing. Rabbi Tenler's not around, and the rules, generations change. Things have changed.
It doesn't have to be in yeshiva. The regular schools too. The kids are.
Yeah. Okay. So, but it's a big people to show off. You can buy nice things. Where you don't have a mitzvah to I don't know. There's no mitzvah like shop at Walmart, not at the Macy's. I don't know. There's no mitzvah like that. But with class, part of class is not showing off. Halakha actually says that you shouldn't wear flashy clothing. Even a Torah scholar. It says a Torah scholar must wear nicer clothing than everybody else in the Jewish community. It's a halakha. Shulchan Aruch. Ironically, we find very often the other way around. Like the rabbi's always the one with like the grease stain on it, or his kid spit ice cream on the kiddush. There's a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, and like I told you the other day, you are a category of Talmid Chachamim. You have to dress more. I don't know if fancy is the word, but in a higher way than the rest of the people. More dignified. Because you don't just represent yourself anymore. We've spoken about this before. But a Talmid Chacham is not allowed to dress, the Amish says, not allowed to dress like a king. It has to still retain some humility. You have to dress up, but not too high. That's the halakha.
How does that mesh with the idea or the saying that says you should a man should dress more expensively than he can afford, and dresses give his wife gifts more than she can afford, and he says I can also dress more than or slightly more than he can afford, right?
If you can find me the quote, Google it and just show it to me, and I want to see it in the original. That's a good question. Because I don't know.
Heard about those?
I think it says
wearing
he should spend more on his wife and children
Yeah.
than he should on
That's the way I understood
himself. No, but I vaguely am recalling something to what Dan is saying. We'd have to see what it refers to. Because just because you're dressing up doesn't mean other people will be aware about it. That's when you go buy your talit, See, my talit, for example, the strings of my talit are worth more than anybody else's talit in the shul. Because the strings it's an expensive Kehillat, and then with the talit, and with the... But nobody has to know that that's what Kehillat costs, or that's what a talit costs. Thank God we don't live in a kind of community where people show off so much. There are communities where, they have a fur coat, or this one has a... It's like craziness that people have in their head, or what outfit did you wear? I only buy an outfit, I wear it once a year, all kinds of things. Baruch Hashem, we don't live in such a world. For most of us, dressing casual is what we appreciate. I'm lucky to be in a community where as a rabbi I don't have to wear a suit every day. I'm very happy about that. I got smicha when I was in the Middle East, and it was August. When is Tisha B'Av? Normally August.
Yeah, August, July.
It was Chet Av. I got my first smicha on the Erev Tisha B'Av, like right before the fast came in. And you're supposed to, now you're a rabbi, so you have to dress up. So what do? Normally people add ties, suits, hats, whatever they would wear. It's Israel in August. So I went to my mashgiach, Rabbi Shushan. I said, Rabbi Shushan, I don't know what to do. Maybe keep the smicha certificate for October, I don't know, November. I don't want it now. They said, do what I do. I said, what? So wear a tie and roll up your sleeves. I said, why? People always assume that your jacket's hanging behind the door, you just didn't put it on right now. And no, Hashem, that's what we do. That's the style of what we dress. That's true. Most people think, like when I was in LA, so that, you come in a milk, do you want to get your jacket from the car? Which jacket? I don't have a jacket in the car. But Baruch Hashem, people assume that when you wear a tie, your sleeves rolled up, you must have a suit jacket hanging around somewhere. So that's part of the Baruch Hashem. That's how I got out of it. So says Rabbi David Yosef, in any case, לעניין הלכה למעשה, basic הלכה נראה שאין צריך לעשות התרה בראש הטלית. You don't have to put a crown or any kind of marking on the head of the talit. מפני שדווקא לעניין תשמישי קדושה שייך לומר את הכלל מעלין בקודש ואין מורידין. There are two categories. One is called tashmishei kedusha, and one is called tashmishei mitzvah. Can someone translate those terms for me? I'll give you a hint. Tashmishei is something that is used for. So tashmishei kedusha, something that is used for holiness. Tashmishei mitzvah is something that is used for a mitzvah. So let's give a practical example. The bag that your talit goes in is a tashmish shel kedusha. Or your tefillin bag for that. Your tefillin bag is a tashmish shel kedusha. It holds, it serves a purpose of something holy. But your tefillin, is it a tashmish kedusha? No, it is a tashmish mitzvah. The use of it is actually a mitzvah. And therefore says Rabbi David Yosef that the talit, is it a tashmish kedusha or a tashmish mitzvah? It's a mitzvah, very good. And therefore it doesn't have this idea of one side being holier than the other side, because it's not an article of holiness, it's an article of mitzvah. It's higher than that. It already is higher than kedusha. V'chein heidu al Rabbeinu HaArizal, the Arizal, they say, they have testimony about him, shelo haya makpid al kach, that he was not particular about this. Shiu hatzitziot shem lefnim, tamid lefnim, he sometimes wore it one way, sometimes wore it the other way. He was not particular about it. And this is a big deal, because if the Arizal was not particular about something, then we can know that we definitely don't have to be. Ve'af, on page 151, and even ledat machmirin, according to those who are strict, לעשות התרה בראש הטלית, to put a crown on top of the talit, כדי שיהיו הציציות שמלפנים, תמיד מלפנים, so those ציציות which are in front will always be in front. אם נקראה הטלית בראשה במקום ההתרה, if you got a little rip in your talit, on the top part of your talit, the shoulder ripped a little bit, in a place where it's still kosher, I mean you didn't make the talit not kosher, it just that's what it became. And because of that, you want to wear it when its top is on the bottom, because you don't want everyone to pay attention to the rip part of the talit. And the one tzitziot that were in the front will sometimes be in the back now. You're allowed to do such.
You can wear it upside down.
Yeah. Not inside out, upside down.
Upside down.
Yeah. And it could be someone feels the crown of their talit got too dirty, or something, they want until they dry clean it or whatever, they flip it inside out.
Wait, inside out is
Not inside out, upside down.
upside
Very
down.
good.
Inside out's not okay.
The talit gets mixed up when you're davening, and you wind up, doing this and doing this too many times.
And then you find,
before
like-
know it, it's on the other. It's on.
Just last week, I saw someone wearing the talit lengthwise.
Yeah,
He
right.
had the
right.
length over, and it was
Right.
like a Superman cape. It went to the floor. Right, so then you would probably have to fix it. But here
Yeah.
we're saying that it's not the end of the world if you want to flip it over.
Then there are poly clips.
Oh yeah. There are talit.
Polis clips.
Yeah, you should have one.
Yeah.
Do you guys sell those? Yeah, it's like a hot thing and like bar mitzvah. I remember my parents like, I got a tali clip. I was always feel like it's gonna fall back and choke me. Like I didn't know what it was gonna do.
They're hanging over.
Right.
Somebody gave me one and then it disappeared.
Yeah, there was a bar mitzvah kid, and it seemed to be like, kind of jewelry kind of fancy.
Well, that's what it was. Let me ask you this question: are you allowed to embroider a pasuk onto your talit, or a pasuk, a verse from the Torah, or let's say, can you embroider the blessing of the talit onto the talit?
Well, a lot of them have
A lot of them have
A
it.
ton have a blessing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
That's not embroidered on though. That's another piece of material that's sewn on.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's
So in the
embroidered
corner
onto another
sometimes
piece of
there's
material and that's
stuff on
sewn
it.
So Toad itself doesn't have it on there, but the plaque does.
Let's see.
No, mine is like that.
So don't worry. Good news and bad news. Page 151.
Oh. Not-
Asur, it's forbidden. We're going to do the good news today too. Asur l'rikom, it's forbidden to embroider pasuk, a verse, mi parashat tzitzit, from the parsha of tzitzit, from the uritem oto or something on the tzitzit. O berkat talit, or the blessing you make in the talit. Ben ba'atarash berosh talit, whether it's on the crown that's on top of the talit, on a separate piece of fabric. Uven b'shar mekomot shebatalit, or whether it's anywhere else on the talit. I saw a very strange talit, not from our circles, but it had the black stripes were shaped like electric wires, and they had birds on them. Talit, it's an article of kedusha, not a work of art. So talit, they're standard. They're not. I had a student who wore a talit. The entire thing was red. Because of him, there's another pogrom or something. They're going to say we dye our talitot in Christian blood. I tell you, we our talitot are white. They have white stripes, black stripes, blue stripes, whatever stripes you have. More than that, we shouldn't.
You've seen the one with the Joseph Pope colors.
Those
Yeah, multicolored.
Yeah.
the multicolored. They were.
done that.
Well, I mean, it's a white talit.
If I'm not mistaken, those were started. I could be mistaken. By Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi of the Jewish Renewal
Well, I
Movement.
mean, maybe.
Like the rainbow and all-inclusive colors. And, okay, I'm not against any kind of talit. Just sharing that the wires with the birds on it was a little bit too much for me. It says you can't have any of these psukim on the talit. Mipnei she'atalit tashmish mitzvahi, because the talit is an article of used for a mitzvah. The ein b'kedushat haguf, and it doesn't have innate holiness. Understand what it says? V'yesh lachush shema yavou divrei hakodesh haktuvim alei alidei bizayon. When you write a verse on a talit, it's like writing it on a piece of paper. So the talit, when you're done with it, you could put it away and... We're going to talk about how you dispose of a talit, but it's not like tefillin where you can't throw it away. You can't. This is a talit. It's clothing. When the clothing wears out, you get a new one. Once you put a pasuk on it, that pasuk has now made this whole thing like a sidur, like a chumash. You can't just throw it away. And you've elevated the talit one level higher than its supposed holiness. V'yesh lachush shema yavou divrei hakodesh haktuvim alei alidei bizayon. And you might suspect that the words of holiness that are written on the talit will come to be some kind of bizayon. They'll be disgraced somehow. Alidei she'achnisena lebet hakiseh, lebet hamechatz. Maybe somebody will wear it into the bathroom, or somebody will take it into the shower, or somebody will whatever they might do with it. It might be on the floor. Who knows what someone might do with the talit? Uv diavad. But what if you didn't have a choice? You went to the Judaica store and they already sold you the talit like that. What do you do then? Hatikva does not have to restock the shelves.
Screaming at the owner.
Yeah?
of the store.
Im asa ken betalit gadol, if they did this with a big talit, dat kama poskim lehatir lasher yikma talit. It's the opinion of a number of poskim to leave the embroidery on the talit. Vizaher shlo yishev al makom arigat psukim or bracha, but you have to be careful never to sit when you're sitting with your talit, never to sit on the part of the talit that has blessings or a pasuk written on it. V'chen yizaher linhog kedusha b'tizon, you should treat this talit with more holiness than your average talit. V'im balta la'achar zman, and if the talit wears out after a long time of use, yizaher shlo yizrakena, you can't throw it away like another talit. Ela yignoz ota, rather you have to bury it with the holy books. Machma divrei kedusha harakumim aleh, because of the words of holiness that are written on it. V'amachmir lehasir makom harikma ma'al hatalit, and those who are strict to take off the embroidery from the talit, v'legonzon, to bury it, tava alav bracha, he should receive an extra blessing.
Wait till the time you bury it, separate the two, so separate the embroidered portion.
No, I mean,
from
if you would want to continue wearing this talit, some poskim would say it's better to just remove this crown and
at
bury
the beginning,
it. Yeah, at the beginning.
And then bury the tongue.
Now, I don't know if you know, the only kind of talitot that have the blessings on them are generally the ones you get at Judaica stores. Or like beginner's talitot. Not the, like if you were going to go buy a real wool talit, with like a Chabad talit would never have it, or this is a Sephardic talit, happens to be. But I don't know if you ever read what it has the blessing here, but do you know what it says over here?
Accompanying.
It says,
Made in
China.
China.
V'havienu l'Tzion berina, you should bring us to Tzion in joy. Miskeret Yerushalayim, a souvenir from Jerusalem. It is made as a tourist item to sell to people. So, like people don't even know what's going on. The tourists don't even know that's what it says. But it was the thing, like back in the 40s, when these were invented, in the 50s, when Americans were coming to Israel, it was the thing to sell products that said made in, remember those camels? You probably know, that said like Israel on them, or they had all kinds of like little midgets with kibbutz hats. Oh, very good, very good. All these like Israel paraphernalia that you would bring back with you. The talit became one of those. Oh, I'm in Israel, I want to buy a talit. So some Jew decided, hey, I'm going to make this into a tourist souvenir to bring back to America. For whatever reason, they're still printing them on the talitot, even though this logo and the design has gone out of style in a long time. But there's a pasuk here, so you should be careful when you sit on this talit, not to sit on that pasuk, because now it has some kind of holiness to it.
Grandma went to Israel and all I got was this.
Was this talit?
Cheap talit, yeah.
So if it has the blessing, the bracha on it, and it falls on the ground, you're supposed to kiss it?
Sure. And in general, you could kiss your talit because you want to treat it with the... Yeah.
Yeah, but...
Right, it would be now like on the status of like words of Torah written on a...
So what happens if the covers for tefillin fall on the ground when you're taking them off and they fall off the
This
jail?
is a great question. All the Tashmish Kedusha versus Tashmish Mitzvah, it seems like the Tashmish Kedusha is not as holy as Tashmish Mitzvah. The problem is that Tefillin have a different law than Tashmish Mitzvah. Tefillin are holier than other mitzvot that you do. Tefillin are actually like miniature Torah scrolls. To the point where if you drop your tefillin, you have to fast.
Well, I don't mean the
Oh, you have to fast?
Yeah, but so what I'm telling you, the difference between a talit bag and a tefillin bag is a talit bag has like the same mitzvah as, the same holiness as your etrog box. Or the plastic that's around your lulav. Whereas the tefillin bag might have a holiness similar to the velvet that goes on the Torah scroll.
So then, not the bag, but the cover to the tefillin would be even holier.
Holier, which is why, I don't know if you know this, you're not allowed to put anything inside of your tefillin bag.
Oops.
Like in your talit bag, you can put candies, whatever you like to put. But your tefillin bag, you can't put you can't put paper in there. You can't put a siddur in there.
Yeah.
Nothing else can go in there except for
You
tefillin.
can't fit anything
Oh,
else
it's
in there.
tzedakah stash in there.
In the tefillin, right? But so put it in the talit bag or the plastic part, but not into the tefillin. Many people don't know this. You know, in many Sephardic communities, they have like this Haftarah book. The Haftarah book is not allowed to go in the Aron Kodesh. You know, what is a book of Haftarah? We'll end with this. What is a book of Haftarot? Ashkenazim don't have this custom. They have either the real Ashkenazim, like in Jerusalem, they have every book of prophets written on parchment. Like the Torah, it's like a miniature Torah scroll. That's a holy object. What are the Sephardic Haftarah books? What are they? Do you know? It looks like a Torah. It's tiny, and it's just printed paper with the weekly Haftarah inside.
It's all scrolled up.
And people, they walk with it, and the kid holds it, and they kiss it. And some shuls, they even sell the honor of kissing it. People walk behind it. I want to tell you, without being sarcastic, maybe it's a little sarcastic, what is holier, the Haftarah book or your Siddur? This Siddur right here. It's in a silver case, and it's got crowns. Why?
Well, it's got words of Torah in it.
It has Torah from the actual Chumash inside. The Torah reading, Bereshit, Noach. When someone walks by you with a Siddur, you kiss the Siddur with your tallit? You walk behind the Siddur? I mean, the fact that people are walking behind this Torah, the Haftarah book, it's an absurd thing. They're kissing it just like they kiss the Torah scroll written on parchment, handed down from Moshe Rabbeinu. Some Gabbai made a lot of money off of this story and then sold it to the rest of the Sephardic Jews. Ashkenazim are lucky they don't have this custom. And therefore, in a Aron Kodesh, you would never be allowed to put a Haftarah book.
Now that you've released this information in words, you're going to end up getting a flood of donations of
Haftarah books?
Haftarah books.
Yeah, okay, good.
I noticed your shul doesn't have a Haftarah book.
So, you could build a separate cabinet. What I did in a past life as a rabbi was I made a second shelf for it. And even though it's also not the best, but we made that shelf not part of our own Kodesh. We kept tablecloths there and all kinds of things. Hashem Yishmor. It's something that we have to be careful about. Now what it means is you have to be educated. If you're not educated, it looks like a Torah, it walks like a Torah, let's kiss it like a Torah. But if you're educated a little bit, you know that the Haftarah is not as holy as the Torah, and therefore you would put things into perspective and you would act differently. Kind of like somebody who argues over reading the Haftarah. The first Hagbah is a bigger mitzvah than getting the Haftarah. Haftarah is something we added during Roman persecution. It's a much later thing in our history. Hagbah, so the Talmud, that someone who does that mitzvah of Galilah, wrapping the Torah, that normally they give to kids, that mitzvah is, the one who does it gets the mitzvot of everybody sitting in the synagogue. It's a much holier thing. But how much money would you pay to do Galilah? And how much money would you pay to get the Haftarah? It's a problem. Jews are uneducated. Do you know why?
What?
Why does the guy getting the Haftarah read the Maftir Aliyah? And there's another halakha. He also is supposed to be the Chazan from Musaf. In real Ashkenazi communities, they're strict. You who does the Haftarah does Maftir and Musaf.
Really?
Do you know why? Our rabbis say that very good. When they read, like the Romans left, so now we're still reading Haftarah. Who wants to keep reading the Haftarah? We'll just drop it. So no, it's tradition. We're going to keep doing it. So in order to appease the person who got the Haftarah, like, sorry, we didn't have enough aliyot for you in the Torah, they added an extra aliyah. Wow. But they do it after the Kaddish. It's like after everything. It's like fine, we'll let you read 3 psukim. Why 3 psukim? It's the bare minimum of any kind of Torah reading you would ever read. And then we let you pray Musaf also. Like, leave us alone. We gave you something. And it's
interesting. I never looked at it that way.
That's the history behind it. And so when we see people fighting over Haftarah, it always makes me smile. There's more to learn. Baruch Hashem.